Hi, I'm Caroline Mitchell, canine behaviourist at Good Doggy. If you've ever felt like you were just really working your arse off with your dog's training, you're putting in loads and loads of effort, you're working really, really hard, but actually it just doesn't feel like you're getting anywhere, then in this video I'm going to explain to you a reason why that might be and why the 80-20 rule is probably most relevant to you. So, what is the 80-20 rule? So I use this in dog training to describe the ratio of fails to wins, and this helps me predict the likelihood of you getting any progress. So for example, if your dog is barking at the window and you react with your training almost every single time. So 4 out of 5 times you manage to get this perfect, but 1 out of 5 times you miss it. That would be a 20% success rate, or 80-20. You will still be getting enough right at this level to make some progress, and I aim for this ratio as a minimum. It has a realistic expectation that things won't always go to plan, but it's also high enough to make reasonably fast progress with kind of the optimum amount of effort. In a perfect world, of course, you would be achieving a 100% success rate, and if you could do that, your progress would be amazingly fast. It is possible in a lot of situations to achieve 100%, but in reality, it's probably not sustainable. But the 80-20 rule is important because if you drop below 80%, your misses will start to have more and more impact. So when you get to about 60%, 60-40, at this point, your progress will actually start to feel quite painful and slow. You will be making progress, but you're going to be putting in an awful lot of effort for very little reward. So at this point, it's not about improving the amount of training you're doing. It's about tightening up the consistency of what you're doing and making the most of each opportunity. When you get to less than 50-50, you might as well really not be bothering. In fact, you might even find yourself going backwards with your training. At this level, your dog is going to lose sight of what they're even doing. And at this point, lots of people will start to blame the technique that they're using. But the dog has spent so little time practicing it in the right way that you just couldn't possibly be making any progress. So for example, loose lead training is a really common situation where the ratio is often very, very skewed, not in your favor. A lot of people will spend a bit of time doing this in the class, and then they go out for their walks and expect everything they've learned in the class to kind of filter across. So let's say you spent 15 minutes doing this very consistently. You work very, very hard. You're very on cue. Your treats and training and everything else is spot on. You spend 15 minutes doing that in your class once a week. And then you go out for 7 1-hour walks a week where you don't practice it at all, or you don't practice it very consistently. So in that situation, you'll have a success rate of less than 3.5%. That's not even 99-1, let alone 80-20. At this rate, you are never going to make a difference. All that loose lead training will be is something you just do in class. As far as your dog is concerned, we do this now for 15 minutes, then we do something else. The rest of the time, it doesn't even equate to that. It's not even relevant to that. So your dog won't be able to connect those things together. And your loose lead training will never translate into your walks. Recall is another really common example. People will let their dogs off in the lead, in the park, the dog's running around, they'll call them 5 or 6 times, and eventually the dog will get it right. So maybe they get a 20% success rate if they call them 5 times, and only on the 6th do they actually come back. So this would be a 20-80, not 80-20. So this could actually mean your recall ends up going backwards. Your dog will become less sure of what a recall even is at this rate, because more of the time you call them, they don't do anything. It's probably actually more chance they came back on that last occasion. Perhaps they were just getting bored of what they were doing and they decided that the treat that you had in your hand was just more interesting than everything else. They'd sniffed everything they wanted to sniff, played with everybody they wanted to play with, and they thought, oh, I might as well just go back for that treat. So maybe it was more coincidence even they came back on that last time. But if it wasn't, at some point, you're going to see your recall going backwards at these kinds of ratios. Reactive behaviour is another one that is really susceptible to this. So let's say your dog is reactive towards other dogs and you've got a training plan in place. You've got everything you need ready. You see a dog in the distance. You've got your clicker ready. You've got your treats ready. You're making loads of space. And you have 3 really successful passes. You managed to get past 3 dogs without any kind of reactive behaviour at all, brilliant, loads of rewards, that's fantastic. But then you get surprised twice on the way home. So that would get you to a 65% success rate, 65 to 35 ratio. It's not great. And your progress is going to be slow, but you will get there eventually. It was just going to feel like super hard work, and reactive behavior is hard enough to solve as it is without allowing these kinds of things to really creep in there and make a difference. So if this is what's happening to you, what do we do to improve this? The thing to do is to pay attention and prepare as much as possible. So with reactive dog, plan routes where you won't get caught. You should avoid alleyways and blind corners and anything like that. And if it means you have to go a little bit further to get home, or even you just drive to the park, then those 2 misses would never have happened. In that example before, where we had 3 really good passes and then 2 bad ones, if you'd have driven to the park that day, you'd have achieved a 100% success rate. So planning ahead with reactive dog training is absolutely the key. If you are going to take your dog out for a walk and you want to just take a day off, then book things like a secure dog field where you'll have the place to yourself and he can just enjoy running around, enjoy having a walk with you, and you're not thinking about other triggers. So plan where you're going to go. Choose places maybe where dogs are not going to be off the lead. An off-lead dog can quickly upset your ratio. And think about exactly where would be the most useful for you to take your dog. Try to aim for 100%. And if you manage to fall back to 80-20, then you are still winning. With the recall, you could use a long line. So every time you call your dog, you use your recall to gently reel them into you. If you did this, you would achieve a 100% success rate. Even though you're doing all the work, the dog is not able to get rewarded for a fail. They're not able to get confused about what a recall is, because every time you call them, they come to you one way or another and you give them a reward for it. If you've got into a mess with your recall and you feel like you have gone backwards a lot with it, this is really, really common, and don't worry. But if you need some guidance about how to get back on track, then check out my step-by-step recall program. And that will guide you through the whole process, including how to deal with distractions. It will take you from the very basics of teaching the command all the way through to getting them off the lead. So have a look at that if recall is a thing for you. And finally, earlier we talked about loose lead training. So the very first instance, you want to teach loose lead training in a class, so they get the idea of the thing. So whatever kind of training you're using in your class, you need to be 100% on that in class. So you're very consistent, so your dog really truly understands what exactly it is that you want. And once you've practiced that enough separate from your walks that your dog really understands what it is, then just apply it to all your walks. With this, you're very much going to struggle to get to 100%. Nobody is that good. Nobody has that kind of high level of frustration tolerance. It is a very hard thing to stick to once you get going, but the better you are at it, the quicker you'll get there. Again, you should easily be able to manage the 80-20 rule if you're doing loose lead training. Once you've taught it to them and then you roll it out to your walks. If you never ever let them pull on their lead again and you always walk as if you were in your training class, then you will definitely get above the 80-20 rule. So hopefully that has given you a little bit of guidance about the kind of thing you should be aiming for. And if you've been struggling with your training before now and you've realized perhaps that your training was having more misses than it was hits, then hopefully you've got some ideas about how to fix that. If not, leave me a wee comment, let me know what you're struggling with. What could you do to balance out your wins and fails so that you could get faster progress? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you soon. Take care for now. Bye-bye.